think you're really hardcore. Thanks for joining, people. Another thing, if you're crazy enough and you would like to change the world, maybe then Chainium would be the right place for you. So what I wanted to say is we're actually looking for good blockchain geeks. Actually, we're looking for good techies who would like to do something different, something better, who would like to change the world. When I was a bit younger, in my case, that's a couple of decades before, I used to play that game called Civilization from Sid Meier's. Is there anyone who, excellent, thanks a lot. So I'm not so old, that's good. It's a beautiful game, right? You're building up your civilization. You need to invest into army to conquer anyone. Culture is very important. But also, what's really important was technology and investing into science in that game. And, better science, breakthrough, better weapon, better army, right? So I was actually playing that game as a crazy, and every time when your civilization would reach a new era, or when your civilization would actually reach a next step, a breakthrough in technology, you actually would then get as a motivation a quote from one of the famous people. And my favorite was the one from Steve Wozniak, funny enough, right? When I was preparing presentation, I didn't even know that, Steve will be there. So Steve said, never trust a computer that you cannot throw out of the window. And that's so true. So, my name is Ermin Dzinic, and I'm a CTO of Chainium and co-founder of Chainium. And Chainium is doing exactly that. We're building a computer that you cannot throw out of the window. We're building a blockchain network. Blockchain is a network of nodes connected, talking to each other, and transferring trust from people, from intermediaries, into a network. It's a beautiful piece of technology. And, we're actually reaching that new era, like in civilization. This is technology that's going to change things. If I would be selecting two technology streams that I think that will influence how our society communicates, how our society behaves, those would be artificial intelligence and machine learning, and that would be blockchain. Why? Because both of those technologies, they have something to do with trust. In artificial intelligence, you need to trust machine that, it can drive better than you. It knows how to brake, it knows when to stop, how not to hit someone. So you're putting basically your life, the trust. People are not giving a control to machine. So we're giving up control to a machine, relying that machine will drive better than we are. And I truly believe that machines are driving better than human, although I'm an excellent driver, just to make it clear. So it's, they still have a lot to kind of, evolve. The second technology, blockchain, is also related to trust. How's that? We as a community, as a society, every time when we would like to transfer asset value, we would even do it on our own, right? If I have this fake 50 euros, fake Chainium 50 euros, so if I would like now, you cannot, I don't have real one. So if I would like to transfer, 50 euros, I would just give it to someone. The moment I transfer 50 euros, I actually leave my asset, leave the ownership of that asset to someone else. Now the second person has that asset. And that's clear. That works. We know how that works. So, however, the world has become global. If I want to transfer, I live in Munich. My family lives in Bosnia, or most of my family lives in Bosnia. So, if I would transfer money one way or another, the only way I can do that is actually to use banks. Why? Because I trust banks. I have an account in a bank. My bank knows another bank in Bosnia. They have some kind of trusted system, and that's all fine. So that trust that I have is transferred into a bank. Now, and this is really cool, we don't have banks anymore, right? And the cool thing about blockchain is you don't even know what you have, right? It's a bunch of nodes all over the world validating your transfer transaction. You have no clue who validated first, and they talk to each other somehow, making consensus which transaction is valid, which not. And funny thing, it works, right? I'm really enthusiastic, and I really kind of, passionate about that. I've been giving a chance to work on a blockchain technology. As said, we in Chainium, right, we believe that equity market is outdated, unfair, and inefficient, right? We are coming from a company that used to be one of those intermediaries in the equity market. Equity stands for shares, so shareholder, trading, all those things that are happening on stock exchanges. So what we want to build is a system to enable companies to raise capital and to enable investors to invest capital without intermediaries. And that was not possible a couple of years ago because we didn't have blockchain. Now it's possible, and this is what Chainium is doing. So we believe, as said, the whole management team has 100 years experience in equity market. So London Stock Exchange, New York Stock Exchange, Deutsche Börse in Frankfurt, those used to be our partners. We were working together with them. And let me tell you a story, a true story. It happened a few hours ago. I had a guy, I hope he's here. He came to me and I was telling me what we're doing. They're trying to cut on intermediaries, right? And he said, well, that's great what you do, because he lives in Norway, he's an Indian, and he wanted actually to invest money into an Indian company. Well, you cannot do that into Norway. Now he actually had to open an account in India, which as a non-resident, it was hard to do. He had to do a lot of papers. He had to do open account. He had to put some currency there. He had to kind of, buy shares. And then what happened after all that process and after investing money, he's now not able to sell that money those shares anymore. So he's stuck with the shares because he's not resident. From whatever reason, he has stuck with the shares that he cannot sell, which means he's simply paying to that intermediary, which is a bank, a fee of 300 euros per year for doing nothing, right? Because intermediary will take money from you independently what you want. On the other side, if you look at the business, right, there is only 1% of businesses who can raise money through the stock exchanges. So worldwide, 99%, so 99 companies out of 100 are not able to raise capital. So the only way how they can actually raise capital is, if I would be owner of a small company or mid-sized company, I would need to go to a bank to ask for a loan, to get some collateral, to put collateral on that credit and pay it off. That's not an investment, that's crediting my company, right? I cannot get investors into my company through stock exchange like those 1% of the company. And this is the problem that Chainium recognized. We actually, I have another story from you. I have a good friend who has a nice souvenir shop, and souvenir shop is doing great. He's actually has flourishing business. They did an excellent job. Now he would like to extend it, right? He would like to open another shop in Zurich because it's a similar market. It would be a successful story. But the only way how he can do that is now, after he spent all his money on the previous businesses, for him the way to grow is to go to the bank and borrow 150,000 euros. For him, it would be excellent if he would have access to a system where he can sell 5 or 10% of his company and get money, and maybe even target investors to be retail investors, normal people like you and me, who would become also a customer in that shop. So this is actually what I was trying to say. So the question is actually, why cannot every business raise shares? The question is also, why cannot everyone trade with shares? We who live in Western Europe, we usually don't have problems with the banks because banks are nicer in Europe and America than what they are in Eastern Europe, for example, Asia, Africa. We're getting a lot of positive feedback from South America, from Brazil, or from India, where people said, this is the problem. We really have problem. We cannot raise capital. Or, if you live in India, you cannot invest in Apple. You cannot buy Facebook shares, right? You're kind of, the market is limited. Guess what? The world we're living in is a global world. So this is what Chainium is doing. So what we want to deliver and what we're working on is delivering a system which has no brokers, no stock exchanges, no banks, no clearing houses, no middlemen, and it will still work, right? It will work thanks to technology called blockchain. So what we have built is a global, fast, and decentralized network that connects businesses and investors. So it connects you with the business owners so that you can immediately, without banks, without stock exchanges, without broker houses, invest into shares. How did we do that? We have built the world's first dual equity network. Sounds great, it's a marketing and so on. But we didn't actually went for blockchain just because it's funny, right? And it's nice. Well, partly also because of that. But we went for blockchain because it solves particular problem, right? It removes intermediaries. We're putting trust into a network. Why did we start with 2 blockchains immediately? A share consists out of 2 types of data, right? One is your transactional data. That's public. It should be public. And it is public nowadays. It's just that you don't know, right? Stock exchange should actually put all the transactions online so that you can download it and see, how the shares were moving. So that's actually our public network. And there is a private network. I cannot store for those of you who used to work with blockchain, you will understand that I cannot store your private personal data on public blockchain because I don't know where that data will end. And although I encrypt it, if the key leaks, I have lost your data. So I need to find another solution. And solution would be a typical, let's put the data in the database, but then it's not distributed. I'm coming back to that initial Byzantine fault tolerant and lack of trust and one central institution that actually manages your central data. So what we actually we have built two blockchain network. Really cool, right? So we have public blockchain network, which stores business and trading data because business and trading data are anyway public. And on the right side, we have built private blockchain, which stores your first name, last name, address, your email, eventually your credit card numbers. You don't want that to be publicly accessible, right? And then we have set of oracles that are communicating with each other. Because blockchain is a kind of closed system, so you need to have set of processes, let's call them like that, right? That will actually kind of be able to connect and pull the data for those public nodes and store it there. So our public blockchain is transparent in public. It's permissionless. Permissionless means that we're an open source project, but even without that, permissionless means that if you want, you can join and become a node and validate transaction on public blockchain. And then for validating those transactions, you will get so the incentive for you to join the network would be some kind of monetary, you need to have an incentive. Incentive in this case is actually realized through CHX fee that you actually need to pay on the network for your transaction to be processed. That fee doesn't go to Chainium. That fee goes to public nodes. And it's a really nice trick, right? I think for those of you who know Ethereum is doing similar thing. They call it gas. More gas you have, higher priority of your transaction. And in equity world, sometimes you need priorities. Sometimes you need to prioritize transaction to push it faster than the others, and we're doing this through this CHX gas that you add on a blockchain. On a private side, we have a private and secure data. It's locked, it's permissioned, which means you cannot just join the network and become a node and start validating transactions there. You need to be permissioned into a network. So we're talking about trusted nodes, similar for the crypto community to Ripple network. And the nodes are incentivized by their business needs, by the business needs to see and change the data on the private blockchain, basically to run the business. On the top, we are planning, as said, we're building an infrastructure project. We're building an open network. We'll build some application on our own, but through our APIs, anybody can actually build cool stuff. And I come back to Steve Wozniak again, who said that Apple is not great or iPhone is not great because it's a great phone. I mean, it's a great phone, but it's great because of number of apps written on that platform, right? So what we're actually building is a platform where people will be able to write application for investor communication, for KYC, for investor voting, right? Because when you buy that tokenized equity, you're becoming a shareholder. That means you have rights to receive a dividend, so you participate in the success of the company. And on the other side, you also have voting rights, which means you can actually influence in which direction company will go, depending on number of shares that you have, right? So we're moving all those equity story now on the blockchain, enabling other people and other companies, our partners that we work with, to build those platforms on our blockchain network. We envision 3 types of customers. One are businesses. So me as a business, I would actually come to a platform. I will say, I would like to sell 10% of my company. I need to collect 100,000 euros. That's kind of, a million share. And I would like to distribute those shares. Those shares are actually then tokenized and being then sold in a form of digital certificate on our blockchain network. On the other side, you investors, currently we have a prototype apps. You can actually just scroll down, select company that you would like to invest into and say, well, this is a really cool. I would like to kind of, become a shareholder in this company, and maybe, I'm anyway buying coffee in this coffee shop. I'm gonna, participate in their success. And the third party is actually our partners and software development companies who will build something on our APIs, on our blockchain network through the APIs that we provide them. A bit technical. So how our technology stack looks like. We are developing our own blockchain with using F#, and blockchain also needs to have some storage. So we have two type of nodes, light and full weight nodes. So we are using SQLite/Postgres, right? Our backend is written in C#, and frontend is Angular, TypeScript, React. Probably you will have a bunch of people here who will ask, why Microsoft? Why F#? So why F#? F# actually is there because it's a functional language, right? And we went for Microsoft functional language because we think that, by default, what Microsoft pushed through becomes standard. Functional programming languages are generally immutable, statically typed. They use first-class functions. They use pattern matching. Those are all those benefits that you have as a developer when you program in functional programming language. You're creating less bugs. The immutability its own, right? Immutability of variables it has something to do with immutability that you have on a blockchain. So if you just Google functional programming and blockchain, you will find a couple of articles. One of them is also on our Medium channel. You will find a couple of articles why functional programming languages are actually excellent for developing blockchain solutions. If you ever start to develop your own blockchain solution, the good examples are Cardano was developed with Haskell, Tezos was developed with OCaml, Eternity, another company from Liechtenstein, was developed in Erlang, Zen Network and Chainium developing their platform in F#. And at the end, I just want to, so yeah, I already mentioned Liechtenstein, so our headquarters is in Liechtenstein. This is where our operations are. Our business development, marketing, sales is in Bristol in UK, close to London Stock Exchange. And then two coolest locations are Munich and Sarajevo in Bosnia, because this is where our development teams are sitting. We have a small blockchain architecture team sitting in Munich, and we have a larger team in Sarajevo. So again, if you think that you see yourself in Sarajevo and you think, you know, this is cool, I would like to work something new, something different, I don't want to just produce apps, then think about joining Chainium, right? I can just say for myself, you don't get opportunity every day to work on such a new piece of technology. And you know, if you have feeling that you're bringing benefits to the people, that you're changing world, even better, right? Because you're doing something which is a good community, right? It's not about profit, it's actually how we can improve the world. That's it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Stay here. We have some questions. Thank you, Ermin. We have several questions here on Slido for you to answer. Actually, the first question I found quite interesting too. But before I ask the first question, can we also get equity in Chainium if we wanted to invest in your company?
My dream is actually once when we go live, that we will be the first company that actually sells equity in Chain on our platform.
Okay, so you will be going. When do you expect to go live?
We are delivering first test version, let's call it like that, alpha in summer.
Okay. Summer of 2018.
This year, yeah.
Okay.
So we're working. We're already deep into development, right? And it's really exciting. You know, learning a lot, which is important.
So now is the time. If you say you're looking for blockchain geeks, now is really the time to jump on.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. You know, now we have set up architecture. We started in basements, you know, setting up fundaments. We didn't take another blockchain and branch it off like others are doing. We're really kind of, you know, doing our own blockchain from scratch. And now it's the time to jump on the boat.
Sounds wonderful. So let's go through some of these questions. First question I think is actually very poignant because May 25th is when, or next week, GDPR is coming into effect. Can you, on the private blockchain, are you able to have your data quickly deleted, the right to be forgotten?
So that, yeah, my favorite question, right? So usually when you're in Germany or Austria, the main question is regulation and GDPR, right? So that's, you would need, first of all, good questions. You would need to do it on a private blockchain because that's where the data is stored. And because we are using BFT consensus protocol among trusted node, we're working on that solution. It will be possible to delete data on the blockchain, which is funny because blockchain doesn't forget anything. So we need kind of, you know, the reason for that is actually on the public blockchain you can forget. You cannot do that, right? Once when you have public, you're out of the control. On the private, you still have some control. You have trusted node, and you can actually announce the leader who will set new.
So you're working on it.
We're working on it.
And it has to be as easy as one click, hopefully, to delete. Or do you have to, like in Facebook, delete everything?
No. It needs to be one click. I mean, we used to I used to work in one of those intermediaries before, so that right to be forgotten is coming now as a law, but it was there even before, right? So if a shareholder says, I'm not a shareholder anymore, I would like my data to be deleted, you had to do that even before. But you cannot delete transactions. So what you just do, mask shareholder first name, last name, and address, so that it's not recognizable anymore. And that's it.
Right.
It's forgotten.
So, thank you. Next question, why not use, like, say, an existing centralized database instead of private blockchain?
Yeah.
Why are you building this up from scratch?
Yeah. So those are two different questions. Then, building up from scratch has a different reasons. And why not centralized database? I'm a database geek, right? I like databases. So I'm Oracle certified professional. I worked with SQL Server for years. My preference would be centralized database. Problem with centralized database, as soon as you have centralized database, you have one single point of trust. You have intermediary again who hold all the data. We have that now, right? So in the process with the centralized database, you will end up each intermediary in process having its own database. A bank has database because it says, that's my client, I need to have my own database. Stock exchange says, well, I'm processing data, I need to have the database. And the registrar says, I'm keeping the data for the client, I also need to have my database. So this is the situation we have now. We keep exchanging data, losing the address of people, and not being able to deliver emails because we have 5 different central databases, right? Yeah. And doesn't work.
Actually, I think the next question actually ties into your answer. What are the benefits of creating a new blockchain instead of building up on Ethereum? Yeah. Could you use Ethereum?
Well, the first benefit there is actually it's fun, right? So it's fun it's fun to. It's really it's really entertaining to build your own blockchain. You learn a lot. You start from scratch. We initially started on Ethereum. We moved away from Ethereum because of 2 reasons. On Ethereum being public blockchain and having proof of work, Ethereum had a scalability issue that didn't work for us. We were in that phase when, some of you hate that story, but when CryptoKitties on Ethereum came up, you were not able to process transaction very fast. Now I cannot go my client, let's say Lufthansa, I cannot go Lufthansa and say, sorry, I cannot process your transaction because someone is running casino or a game on the public blockchain. So I need to have reliable business. That's one of the reasons, right? There are more. I was thinking that even to put a slide about that, but good that the question came up.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. One more question before we have our next speaker, and I actually think this is a very good one. If people are going to have equity in any of the businesses using Chainium, what about laws, governments, or actually paying taxes? How will they be able to pay taxes?
Yeah. First of all, we are talking here about serious business. So we're not talking about anonymized crypto geeks, sending money here and there, with bitcoins. If you're an investor on our platform, you need to do KYC. We need to know who you are. You need to pass AML, anti-money laundering, right? Because me as a business, I don't want money from a drug cartel and then having, someone knocking on my door in the middle of the night asking for money. Yeah. So that bit needs to be regulated. And we're, partly we're working with governments, and on the other part, we're a bit pushing boundaries because that's what blockchain is doing, that technology is doing. So government needs to catch up. Government needs to make law on how this will work, right? The laws are still not there, but it will be there, right? The same like Uber is not regulated, Airbnb is not regulated, Internet was not regulated a couple of years back. Now it is. Now we're in that phase, and we will push governments to regulate that market.
Ermin, CTO and co-founder of Chainium, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Great.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks for that.
Money.
Yeah.